think that I guess the state's primary position was that they weren't talking about you at the church.
Right. And if you go listen to it and watch it, it starts off by saying, why does Commissioner Bridget Thorne and so many others, and then it refers to they attack him for being black. They attack him, not anyone else, just they attack the black man. They're not talking about Miss Thorne or Marjorie Taylor Greene. They're talking about us. And you know how everybody knows that? Because not a single story from the media reported anything other than Fani Willis accused the defense and defendants of being racist. Now here's the common sense part of this. If you follow the state's position on forensic misconduct, Fani Willis could all day long talk about race. She could say the defendants, I'm not saying they're guilty or not guilty, but they're racist. They're racist. They're racist. And according to the state's position on forensic misconduct, that wouldn't be a problem. Obviously, that makes no sense whatsoever. The issue here that we've dealt with on forensic misconduct is not simply the church speech. It's why she did it, how she did it, calculated, and all the other things that we talked about with the testimony of Wade and Willis in this case.
Live breaking news, everybody. Cash Money G, Fani Willis. We haven't talked about her. We haven't talked about this case. Remember, she filed this indictment against Donald Trump and 18 other co-defendants. There's been drama for your mama till the end of days. And now the pit bull, Steve Sadow, the GOAT, the greatest of all time, is back. You can see on your screen right now, he filed a brand new brief to the Court of Appeals, which is supposed to be hearing this case. The appeals court did accept their interlocutory appeal by Sadow and other co-defendants, essentially Trump, saying that there was enough mendacity there to warrant an appeal. So they're going to review that. Oral arguments are supposed to begin in December of this year. Originally, it was supposed to be October. They pushed it back to December. And now the pitbull Sadow has just filed this brief to get the whole thing thrown out. I'm going to cover everything. You know your boy Nez always has you covered. Ooh-wee, we haven't talked about Cash Money G in a long time. I'm so excited about this. So I'm going to break it down. What does this brief mean? What's inside it? What is Sadow trying to get thrown out on what grounds? Essentially, you saw the video clip I just shared. Essentially, he's basically saying that she should not only be disqualified, but the entire case should be dismissed because it is polluted. It is tainted with mendacity, with misconduct from the prosecution. Big shock there. I'm going to break it all down. I'm also going to talk about what are the likely outcomes, what happens if they grant this motion, and what happens if they deny it, and also my assessment on what I think is the most likely based on due diligence and qualitative and quantitative research, what I think will actually happen. So here is the actual statement from Steve Sadow's X account. By the way, follow me on X. I'm at Professor Nez. I post a lot of stuff on X. And it reads, my statement as lead counsel for President Trump. This is today, by the way, August 26, 2024, Monday. My statement as lead counsel for President Trump in the Fulton County, Georgia case. President Trump's legal team has filed a reply brief in the Georgia Court of Appeals persuasively rebutting the state's arguments. The brief makes clear that District Attorney Willis should be disqualified and the case dismissed because her own proven false incendiary racial rhetoric in the church speech was calculated to heighten public condemnation of, and thereby prejudice, the defendants in the eyes of potential jurors. Such misconduct violated the Georgia rules of professional conduct. Therefore, President Trump again calls for dismissal and her removal. So I'm going to break it down for you, as I always do, in the simplest of terms and definitions so everybody can understand them. If you want to check out the entire brief, I will leave a link in the description of this video. Make sure that you check that out if you're so inclined. There's some great language in there. There's some great stuff that Sadow has written in there. It's fantastic. It's just very imbued with legalese. It might be a little bit difficult for people who aren't in the legal world to understand them. Okay, so here we go. So the purpose of this motion seeks to disqualify Willis, of course, from prosecuting this case, citing her conduct as unethical and prejudicial, which is absolutely right. The argument, the defense argues that Willis violated ethical rules, particularly the Georgia rules of professional conduct, by making public statements that could prejudice the case. And here now I have the actual church speech in question that Sadow is identifying as prejudicial and inflammatory. We're going to listen to it right now, just a couple of minutes. Check this out.
I'm a little confused. I appointed 3 special counsel, as is my right to do, paid them all the same hourly rate. They only attacked one. I hired one white woman, a good personal friend and great lawyer. A superstar, I tell you. I hired one white man, brilliant, my friend, and a great lawyer. And I hired one black man, another superstar, a great friend, and a great lawyer. Oh Lord, they gonna be mad when I call them out on this nonsense. First thing they say, oh, she gonna play the race card now. But no, God, isn't it them who's playing the race card when they only question one? Why are they so surprised that a diverse team that I assembled, your child, can accomplish extraordinary things? God, wasn't it them that attacked this lawyer of impeccable credentials? The black man I chose has been a judge more than 10 years, run a private practice more than 20, representing businesses in civil litigation. I ain't done, y'all. Served as a prosecutor, a criminal defense lawyer, special assistant attorney general, won Chief Justice Robert Benham Award from the State Bar of Georgia. You know, they ain't just giving this to black men. How come, God, the same black man I hired was acceptable when a Republican in another county hired him and paid him twice the rate? Oh, y'all ain't hear me. In another county, the elected official has the authority to pay him twice the rate. Why is the white male Republican's judgment good enough, but the black female Democrats not?
It's mind-boggling to me, because remember, as Sadow pointed out so adamantly and rightly so, prosecutors are supposed to be held to the very highest standard. And you're out there, shucking and jiving at church, essentially polluting a potential gene pool. Not only is there major prosecutorial misconduct, forensic misconduct, and polluting a potential gene pool and impropriety, but there is definitely, absolutely, unequivocally the appearance of impropriety. This is why I said Pussycat McAfee should have originally not only disqualified Cash Money G, but disbarred her, and even she should have faced criminal charges or some kind of prosecution. Anyway, we'll get into this in just a second. So that's I want to hear what your thoughts are on that church speech. Is Sadow right? Is this incriminating? Does this dilute and pollute a potential a potential pool of jurors? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. So that's the legal argument. That's the purpose. The key points of the argument standing to file the motion. The defense claims that President Trump has the right standing to request Willis's disqualifications because her actions have directly impacted his right to a fair trial, which is actually 100% right. They argue that Willis's public statements have created a bias against Trump, undermining the integrity of the judicial process. At the very least, there's an appearance of that undermining, if there isn't an outright undermining of that integrity. Violation of ethical rules. The specific violation, the defense points to Rule 3.8G of the Georgia Rules of Professional Conduct, which prohibits prosecutors from making public statements that could heighten public condemnation of the accused. Seems pretty straightforward here. Willis's conduct, you can tell, the motion highlights a speech, which I just played for you, which Willis gave at church, where she allegedly made inflammatory remarks, including accusations of racism, which the defense argues are aimed at prejudicing potential jurors against Trump and his co-defendants. So the prejudice and fair trial concerns break down like this. Bias and prejudice. The defense asserts that Willis's comments were not only unethical, but also intended to create a bias against Trump, jeopardizing his right to a fair trial. The egregious nature of the conduct. The motion argues that Fani Willis's actions were so severe and calculated that they require her disqualification from the case to preserve the fairness of the proceedings. The forensic misconduct, what does that entail? Well, quite simply, the defense accuses Willis of engaging in forensic misconduct by allowing her personal and political interests to influence her prosecution of the case. This, they argue, further justifies her disqualification, as it is abundantly clear which side of the political aisle she stands on. Request for relief. The primary request, the defense asked the court to disqualify Willis and her office from the case. The alternative request, if the court does not disqualify Willis, the defense requests that the entire indictment be disqualified. So there's two requests. There's a primary and an alternative request there. So in conclusion, the motion concludes by urging the court to vacate the previous decision, denying the disqualification of Willis, and either dismiss the indictment or remove her from the case to ensure a fair trial. Like I said, if you want to check out the entire full brief that's written out by Steve Sadow and the Trump team, I will leave a link to that in the description down below. Check it out at your leisure. Now, if the appellate court agrees with the arguments presented in the motion, here are some things that could potentially happen. Obviously, the first thing is that disqualification of Fani Willis. If they find that she violated the rules and is biased, she could be disqualified. A new prosecutor would likely be appointed to take over the case. This could lead to massive delays. It would be pushed way past the election, and God knows what would happen if Trump wins. That could change everything. Number two, dismissal of the indictment. If the court determines that the prosecution's conduct has so severely compromised the integrity of the case that a fair trial is impossible, the court could dismiss the entire indictment altogether. The re-indictment possibility, even if they do dismiss the indictment, it's possible that a new prosecutor could seek to re-indict Trump and the other defendants, depending on the strength of the evidence and the circumstances, which I've talked about this many times. The only reason they brought this up is to stop him, jail him from running, because they're scared to death. Remember, Kamala Harris is behind a lot of this. She mentored Cash Money G. Fani Willis on how you can go about doing this. It's all a part of their strategy, all a part of their plan. It's just been blowing up in their face because they picked wholly unqualified, uncredentialed people who have zero acumen in the legal sense of the word that are essentially DEI hires and don't know what they're doing, and they're so incompetent. Remand to lower court with instructions. So the appellate court could remand the case back to the trial court. I don't think that's going to happen, but that is a possibility to reconsider the motion to disqualify the prosecutor or to address specific issues raised. Limited scope. The case could continue under the same indictment, but with requirement that the trial court correct certain procedural and ethical violations. There could also be appeal to the higher court. So if the appellate court rules in favor of Trump, the state of Georgia or other parties involved might appeal the decision, and it could go all the way to the Georgia Supreme Court or even the U.S. Supreme Court, depending on the legal questions involved. And by the way, that could happen on both sides if they lose, win, if they deny or accept this plea, this motion. Legal precedents. The outcome could set significant legal precedents, particularly regarding the limits of prosecutorial conduct and the rights of defendants in high-profile cases. The beauty of the legal criminal justice system is all of these cases. This is why it really requires the proper acumen, due diligence, and thorough investigation and thorough rumination over these motions, et cetera, is because every single grant or denial becomes a precedent. So it's very, very important that they get everything correct. A change in public perception and strategy, public and political impact. A ruling disqualifying Willis could have broader implications for public perception and the political landscape, potentially influencing the strategies of both the prosecution and defense in other ongoing legal matters involving Trump. Precedent for future cases. Such a ruling could also establish a precedent for how similar cases are handled in the future, particularly those involving high-profile defendants and politically charged environments. Now, what I think is likely that is going to happen, it's obviously very, very difficult to kind of ascertain that, but I kind of broke this down and I kind of want to talk about this. So factors favoring denial, the high burden for disqualification. Disqualifying a prosecutor, especially in a high profile case, is a serious step that courts generally avoid unless there is clear evidence of severe misconduct that directly impacts the defendant's right to a fair trial. Courts often require strong, unequivocal evidence of bias or unethical conduct that would render a fair trial impossible. While the defense has made serious allegations, the court may find that the standard for disqualification hasn't been met. Preference for resolving issues at trial. Courts tend to prefer addressing concerns about fairness and bias during the trial rather than through pretrial motions. The court may decide that any potential prejudice can be mitigated through jury instructions or other trial procedures. If the court believes that any issues related to Willis's conduct can be addressed within the normal course of the trial, it may reject the motion and allow the case to proceed, which means if they reject it, everything goes back to normal and Fani Willis can essentially prosecute this case, and she will to the full extent of the law. Preservation of judicial efficiency. The court might be reluctant to disqualify the prosecutor because doing so could significantly delay the trial, requiring a new prosecutor, etc., etc. The court may prioritize moving forward in a timely manner. We saw this happen with the YSL RICO trial. It seemed abundantly clear that Young Thug and his defendants had totally been compromised of a fair trial, but the judge said, well, look, we're going to let the judicial process work itself out, and what we'll do is we'll modify. She's trying to unscramble scrambled eggs. It's turning into a complete travesty, as most of us have seen. It's almost impossible to fix any of the impairment to that judicial integrity. So we'll see what happens, but I fear, you can see where I'm kind of leading with this. I kind of fear that this may take the same course of action here in this Trump RICO case. Factors favoring granting the motion. Severity of allegations. If the court agrees that Fani Willis's public comments were sufficiently egregious and could compromise the fairness, it might find that disqualification is necessary to ensure justice. The court might also consider the broader implications of allowing a prosecutor who has made potentially prejudicial statements to continue leading the case. The high profileness of this is another thing that's important to kind of consider. The court may recognize that this kind of has an exceptional nature and decide that removing an appearance of bias is crucial, not just for the parties involved, but for the public confidence in the justice system. Here's my likelihood. This is my here's the big moment here. I think that given the high burden of proof required for disqualification and the court's general preference for resolving issues within the trial process, I'm also taking into account YSL RICO, Young Thug, I think it is more likely that the court will deny the motion. Sadly, even though Willis has no business being not only a district attorney, not only prosecuting this case, but no business being stepping foot in any courtroom anywhere. I don't care if it is in Guam. She has no business being in a courtroom. She has proven that time and time again. Her conduct, her ethics, her display, her constant disregard for the law on multiple occasions has proven that in my mind, without a shadow of doubt. However, having said that, I don't think that they're going to grant this motion at all. I think trial is going to continue, but they are letting the judicial process play out. If the court, this is the less likely possible outcome. I think the most likely outcome is they're gonna deny the motion. The less likely, but it's still possible. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just thinking it's not likely. If the court is particularly concerned about the potential for prejudice or believes that the public statements have tainted the judicial process, it might grant the motion, but this would be less common in such cases. I throw this off to you. We haven't talked about this in a long time. There's been so much happening in the world, and this case has been delayed. The appeals court, this process takes a very, very long time. What do you guys think? What do you think of the Pitbull Seidel, the GOAT, coming in with this brief right here, filing in response to the state, to the appellate courts? Do you think they're going to accept this, deny this? Let me know in the comments. Just write accept or deny in the comments down below. I can't wait to read your comments. Give me context. Let me know more. I look forward to hearing and seeing and reading, not hearing, but reading your comments. So let me know down below. As always, tap the thumbs up. It takes you a nanosecond. It's free, and it helps us push our video out to more people so more people can be informed. Check out these videos coming up on the screen right here. Sign up for our free newsletter down there. Subscribe, follow, and as always, God bless you, and may God bless America. I'll see you soon.